It's an otherwise ordinary New York night. That is until we look at the city's rooftops to find the neighborhood-friendly Spider-Man in an unusual situation. For one, he's pinned to a wall, as a sorceress named Morwen tries to bombard him with magical energy. For another, this night gets weirder when you find out that Spider-Man is working with none other than Marvel's very own god of mischief himself, the Asgardian Loki. Strange bedfellows aside, one thing's for sure, both the quippy webhead and the immortal trickster have found themselves in a bind as they weather the barrage of mystic blasts coming their way. The web slinger tries to craft balls made of webbing as a last-ditch effort to counter Morwen's assault. He finds the right moment to strike, so he hurls his makeshift projectiles right at the sorceress. Ultimately, one of his web balls hits its mark and strikes Morwen in the face. And it's just enough time for him and Loki to spring their plan. But how did we get here? Well, let's jump back to a few minutes ago where we find Spider-Man and Loki sitting on a ledge atop one of New York's many towering skyscrapers. So this is, as you say, the finest your city has to offer? Hey, it's a hot dog. You know anything else that says New York more than a good dog with mustard, maybe a little chili? I'm just not altogether sure you've given this a great deal of thought. Now, if you're wondering about what Spider-Man and Loki have in common at this point, well, it sure as hell ain't their love for hot dogs. In any case, Spidey and the God of Mischief start discussing the events that ultimately brought them into each other's paths. It turns out that Morwen has found herself smitten with the wall crawler. She's basically planning on turning Peter Parker into her magical husband. But, of course, Spider-Man is not on board with this. Then, as if on cue, a fog starts to spread where Loki and Pete are sitting. And when they turn their heads, no one else is there but Morwen herself. I have come for your answer. Spider-Man, do you wish to share in the gift I have to give? The power I have to convey upon you? Or will you spurn my gratitude and gift, and perish? The web slinger, as you'd expect, quips with the sorceress a bit. But it's at this point that Loki notices something curious. He calls Morwen by a different name, Tess. Spidey asks him who in the world this. Tess? And the revelation might just shock you. My daughter. You have a daughter? Hundreds. Across the centuries. I'm a Norse god. It's what we do. Upon realizing that Morwen is possessing his daughter's body, Loki orders Morwen to leave Tess alone. But, being the villain that she is, Morwen refuses. And, in true comic book, villain fashion, she tells her motives about choosing Spider-Man as her consort, because Pete isn't just a hunky boy, he's Marvel's true agent of chaos. And now, well, now we have a fight. Loki blasts Morwen with a ray of magic, but the sorceress blocks this by forming a force field around her. Spider-Man's senses kick in, so he jumps behind a wall to avoid getting hit. But don't worry, folks. We all know Spider-Man isn't a coward. He's just biding his time to provide Loki with some much-needed backup, as he grabs a thick sheet of metal and uses it to shield Loki from Morwen's counterattack. This ultimately makes Morwen more outraged, so she ups the ante and increases the number of mystical rays coming from her hand to bombard Loki and the wall crawler. Loki finds an opening and uses his magic to bind and subdue Morwen. But the sorceress tries to chant a spell in order to free herself. Loki notices what she's doing, so he tells Spidey to act quickly, as Ol Webhead forms a tornado made out of his trademark webbing. But, despite Peter's agility, he's still not fast enough to stop Morwen from completing her spell and sending thousands upon thousands of needle-like projectiles toward Loki and Spider-Man's way. The next thing they know, Morwen's blasting them with magical energy again. And this is where we come to the present, right at the moment when Spider-Man and Loki spring their plan to stop Morwen and save Tess along the way. To do that, Spidey uses himself as a diversion to keep Morwen occupied while Loki enters her mind. There, the God of Mischief finds Tess, his own daughter, trapped inside her own body. Loki tries to convince Tess to fight Morwen's influence, but the sorceress proves that she's gotten her claws deep inside the girl. In the real world, we discover that Morwen has completely gotten the better of Spider-Man as she magically traps him with his own webbing. Pete struggles to resist the sorceress' hold, but he can feel his strength rapidly declining as the webbing around his neck, body, and limbs tighten with every passing second. But just when the wall crawler thought all was lost, Loki bursts out of Morwen's mind and chants a spell that separates the sorceress soul from his daughters. In the aftermath, Loki tells Spider-Man that he owes Pete a favor for helping him save Tess. The next day, Spidey manages to track down Tess's last known address to check up on her. He finds Loki waiting for him when he gets to her empty apartment, however, and the God of Mischief tells him where he can find her. And this is where we discover what Spider-Man and Loki's middle ground. I want you to look after her. Make certain she doesn't remember what happened with Morwen. You would do that for me, right? So much for the favor of the gods. My request has displeased you. Nah, it's just... I have my own reasons to look after Tess anyway. Morwen might be back to try and take over her body again. That is my concern as well. And that's one thing we finally have in common. And there you have it, guys. Spider-Man and Loki teaming up and, hell, becoming sort of friends along the way, too. What did you think of this story? Who else would you like to see Spider-Man team up with? Let's hear about it in the comments section below. And for more amazing pop culture videos, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell to be the first to see them. We'll catch you soon, only here at KRTV Marvel.